The high volume of imports only intensified Iran's monetary problems. The chronic drainage out of the country of Iran's precious metals, mostly silver, which had endured since the Safavid era, now also included payments for the widening trade deficit. The depletion of gold and silver to foreign export, as well as actual export of Iranian species in the form of bullion, were the chief cause of the Iranian currency's fall in value throughout the 19th century and its drastic depreciation. Between 1817 and 1823, for instance, the total of £1,533,194, about $7,665,000, of Iranian bullion, specie, and pearls were exported from the Persian Gulf ports to India and Arabia, mostly by British and Banyan traders. As the century progressed, the volume of these exports swelled. At the beginning of the 19th century, one Iranian tuman of 10 garan was equal to 1 English pound sterling, about $5. By 1845, the tuman had depreciated by half, and by the end of the century it was 1/5 of its original value. The tuman's loss of purchasing power brought major inflationary pressures to Iran's economy, most visible in the foreign trade sector. The impact of currency depreciation and the ensuing inflation, moreover, was compounded by a visible shortage of funds on the Iranian market and a higher cost of borrowing. Exorbitant rates of interest, as high as 25% annually, were not uncommon. The shortage of funds encouraged not only usury, against all Islamic prohibitions, but also a culture of the middleman, indicative of the high rate of hidden unemployment. Goods changed hands several times between the manufacturer and the consumer, which added to the price while providing a meager income for a host of intermediaries. Shortage of funds and high rates of interest in turn encouraged commercial defaults and the prevalence of buyers reneging dabeh after the transaction was complete. By the middle of the century, the gap between the incomes of Iranian average urbanites and elites had become glaring. Throughout the first half of the century, the Qajar princely class, the court, the high-ranking state officials, the landowning khans, and the wealthy mujtahids, as well as a sector of the mercantile community, those who had succeeded in warding off the ravages of the economy by affiliating themselves with the European import trade, all accumulated wealth. The state officials' income from informal proceeds, known as madakhel, particularly became rampant, serving as a substitute for inadequate and irregular fixed salaries. From ministers and governors all the way down to state accountants and tax collectors, madakhel was condoned as an institutional form of corruption. The government's failure to redress the economic injustices of the market and protect the domestic workforce from intrusions and social insecurity plunged Qajar society into even greater crisis.